Assalamu alaikum viewers, a very warm welcome to all of you watching Hidayat TV. I'm Haider with another episode of Generation Gap. Viewers, charity and volunteer work, irrespective of your religion, your culture, your background and your creed, are very important in today's society. Today we will be talking to an organization who is formed in the name of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, but it goes beyond the religious and cultural fold and serves and cater the needs of human beings across the world. It's an organization found in London only 2 years ago and now got a footprint across the world. So let me welcome the guest today. We are joined by Afroz Merchant, and she works at Al Mahdi Institute, and she's one of the team leaders, Birmingham team of Who is Hussain campaign, head of marketing for Abbasi Youth Committee of KSIMC Birmingham. She also teaches in Sunday Madrasa. Also on Skype we have Muhammad Ali Gokul, trainee solicitor and chair of Stenmo Jaffrey Hujjat, and interested in politics, sports and charity work, and he will be also representing Who is Hussain. In studio Yasmin Shakranchi, dentist, and also has been involved with Who is Hussain a couple of months ago. Thank you very much for joining, all of you, and very warm welcome to tell us, Afroz, the concept behind Who is Hussain campaign.
This campaign was started by 3 young men in London about a year ago, and the idea behind it was to share the compassion that Hussain had in the wider world, regardless of people's race, sex, community, religion, ethnicity, anything. It was just to show how the religion of Islam is ever embracing. So that's how it started, and they have designed a website which has most of the information of Hussain and his journey and his morals and his values. What they did last year is they aimed to publicize the website as much as they could, so people can go on there and get information and then be inspired by Hussain. This year in Birmingham we've taken a little bit of a twist, and instead of publicizing the website, we've displayed it in our actions more so. As you may have known about our
you had a wonderful event.
Dinner. The first event we had was actually at the Edgbaston Cricket Stadium during the India-Pakistan cricket match, where we gave out 10,000 bottles of water to the public. Obviously there was 2 reasons behind it. One, so that they get the website and they get inspired by it. Secondly, obviously the message behind water is that it's the most universal substance on earth. And
it's a wonderful message.
Yeah,
as well.
exactly.
Okay, we'll come to the event as well. Yasmin, you tell us that what makes you feel resonating across this Who is Hussain? Why not? Because there are so many people, as I mentioned in the start as well, that they've been asking a question that why it couldn't be Who is Muhammad campaign, or someone who is more larger than life figure in Islam, and everyone is connected to that figure. Why Who is Hussain?
I mean, I agree to an extent, but I think the main thing with Who is Hussain is the story of Hussain is so sort of inspiring, so different in the sense that he presented the ultimate sacrifice, and his story and the compassion he showed throughout his life, and then during the Battle of Karbala and everything, it's sort of a forgotten story in the general sort of Islamic perspective. A lot of people don't know about what happened and what Hussain stood for, and I think the fact that we've made this a Who is Hussain campaign and emphasised the idea of the humanitarian aspect draws a lot of people in, and it makes people think, perhaps it could have been Who is Muhammad or other bigger figures maybe, but I think a lot of people don't know about Hussain, so I think that's why it's important.
Okay, all right. Muhammad Ali, you tell us your initial comments. I mean, what was the concept behind this whole campaign?
Sure. Imam Hussain is a magnificent personality that transcends the boundaries of time, religion, race, creed, background, whatever it may be. He is a unique personality who the founders of Who is Hussain believed it was their obligation to share his magnificent story with the world at large, because everyone can take something, both from his life journey, the anecdotes that happened at Karbala, and also his companions and family members and what they gave up for in search of a greater good. In response to why it was that it wasn't Who is Muhammad, there have been various websites done very well, such as Inspired by Muhammad, along similar grounds. But also Imam Hussein, because he's not so well known to the public at large, he doesn't command that necessarily that religious slant that the name Muhammad would, just as Jesus would for Christians or Moses would for Jews. In that sense, there is an appeal to introducing this unknown personality to Joe Bloggs walking down the street, because he doesn't necessarily associate Imam Hussein's name with religion, and so will be much more open-minded to hearing about his morality, about his compassion, about his humanity. If you look through the literature, you'll find that there are such magnificent quotes, fantastic, tremendous, eye-opening things said about Imam Hussein from the likes of Gandhi, from Gibbon. When Gandhi says, if I had 72 followers like Hussein did, I would have conquered India in 24 hours, then you can really take from that, in that very short quote, how unique, how incredible, how incomparable and inimitable the story of Imam Hussein at Karbala is. And that's why I think Who is Hussein begun, and alhamdulillah, in the short time it's been in existence, it's gone great strides.
Okay, but you mentioned that there are in the literature there are so many people who have written or said so much good stuff about Imam Hussein. But don't you think it's it undermines even our own Muslim community that we don't even come closer to Imam Hussein, be it Shia school of thought or Sunni school of thought? And as Yasmin mentioned as well, that we are unable to propagate the message within ourselves first. So how come you have decided to go on beyond the folds of Islam?
Sure. I mean, there's this hadith from the 8th Imam Rida, where he says, introduce us, namely the Aimma, to the public at large, and essentially we'll take care of the rest. Mm-hmm. The product, namely the story of Imam Hussein and his companions, is so fabulous and so incomparable to many other personalities, and there's so much to take from it, that to use any other personality may not have the same effect. But in response to the question about the wider Muslim community, it is unfortunate that we don't rally around this figure for whatever reason it may be. I believe the founders of Who is Hussein think that Imam Hussein is a person for all, whether Shia or non-Shia, Sunni or Christian or atheist even. And that if we move away from the debate, the furore around what it is you're alluding to, that there is great morality that we can extract from his personality. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Let me bring in Feroz here. We were talking about the events here. So you have done, what are the future plans?
Future plans? What we aim to do towards Muharram is have an Ashura awareness exhibition. It's still in the process of planning, nothing concrete yet. But we aim to call schools and colleges to spread the message between the youngsters, because as you might know, during the time of Muharram, there's a lot of publicity on Matam, especially when it comes to Zanjir and stuff.
All the negative connotations.
All the negative issues that they associate with Shiaism as such. So we want to call people to see a different side of what Shiaism actually is, what Hussein actually stood for. It wasn't his message to, you know, do Zanjir and do Matam.
And it's not only for the Muslim,
that's more towards the emotional side of what people feel, but really this is what happened, and this is what you can learn from it, and this is how you'll be inspired to do good. So that's the thing that we are aiming for. So have it one day for the schools and the other day open to the public. Inshallah, that's. And do
you foresee any logistical issues, or do you see it's difficult when you approach people and what they will think about it?
No, not that I can think of, because as far as I'm aware from the events that we've done so far, it's always been with the non-Muslims, and the impact that it's had is amazing. Like the feedback that we get from the Lord Mayor, the feedback that we got from Salma Yaqub, they were just surprised. They were like, wow, we've never met a group of people as passionate as you are, and, you know, showing so much compassion towards others that the society neglects absolutely.
Especially the homeless people you have catered for.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Okay, so Were you involved, Yasmin, as well in that event, which was?
Yeah.
So tell us more about that event.
So the event that we did, we invited 200 people, homeless people, to come to the Digbeth Banqueting Suite in Birmingham. And we did, it was a HUSSAIN event, of course, and we not only gave them food, so it was a 3-course, you know, lavish dinner. It was over and beyond that sort of. It was more like the volunteers gave them time. You know, we gave them like a lending ear, listened to their problems, and also we gave them entertainment. You know, we had poetry recitals. We had, you know, the big issue even came in, and they gave them job opportunities, and shelters came in that told them that, you know, at these times you can come to these shelters and you can get food and you can get shelter, and there's certain times you can come and shower, and it was more than just the homeless coming and feeding them. It was
so do you see, I mean, do you believe that it is a responsibility of all men and people, women in the society to look after the other people who are in need?
Absolutely, yes. I don't think that helping someone is confined to you being a Muslim or a Christian or a Jew. It covers all humanity. I mean, we all have that spark of compassion in us innately. I think that it's our duty as as human beings to help our fellow man. That goes beyond being Muslim or your religion or your creed or anything like that. And that is ultimately what the Who is Hussein campaign is.
Okay. All right, Mohammed, I want to quote some figures here. In 1999, according to Charity Commission, there were 163,000 almost charities, and their turnover was around 307 billion. And in 2013, amount of charities stays the same, but the turnover is around 60 billion UK sterlings. So, I mean, is it the administrative cost? I mean, I don't see anything happening on the ground. So where is this all money pondering? I want to step back from Who is Hussain campaign and want to bring in the whole charity issue in general. So what is going wrong in the charity sector?
I don't think there's something necessarily going wrong. I think there are several strands to this analysis here. First of all, the role of governments around the world is increasing. So the UK government, for example, year on year is giving more and more money. It's one of the actual, as part of the spending cuts, one of the ring-fenced areas was international aid. So governments are doing more and more, not enough by any stretch of the imagination, but they are acknowledging they have a responsibility, one. Two, look, there's many quotes even from the eminaries within our field that say that if all the rich people and all the poor people were to share their resources equally, there wouldn't be a single person who were to go hungry. So naturally, yes, there is an inequality in the way we are doing things, but I don't think it's the fault of charities. Charities need to receive more support. I can only talk about the United Kingdom, but one of the great fallacies of this idea of the big society that the coalition propagate, that essentially institutions like charities, like churches, community centres can do the brunt of the work, is that they need more resources, human resources and financial resources. If you look at one aspect, food poverty, food banks up and down the country are predominantly run by community and religious centres, and they're doing a fantastic job. But the demand is increasing amidst these difficult economic times. They need more support, and it can't just be the role of the third sector to care for people who can't afford to pay their bills or feed their children month on month. I think we need to acknowledge that reality. And also, as Shia, we need to take lessons from our personalities like Imam Ali. There's a story that at the time of Imam Ali, there was a great king who was renowned for his generosity. It was said that if you were to go to his palace and you were to knock at 40 of his doors, you wouldn't be turned away from any of the 40 doors. The response came that if you were to knock on the house of Imam Ali, if you knocked on one door, that would be enough. You wouldn't have to go to another door. We need to take lessons from that. We need to take lessons as well from, we need to understand the meaning of Asma al-Husna. When we talk about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's magnificent generosity, He is generous, but He demands no reciprocity. We as the Shia of Ali, as people who seek to serve His grandson, Imam Zamana, Jalal Faraja Sharif, we should seek to be the good Samaritans. We should seek to be beacons of light, who demand nothing in return for our good services.
Okay, but Mohammed, I mean, I appreciate and I understand that there are own understanding of these personalities, and we want to always get inspiration from these. But why the concept of charity in Islam, we have to refer back to these personalities? Why we can't just take away this personality? So at least there is neutrality and people can come into this domain from all other sects?
Well, Hussein is a great example of this. Hussein isn't imposing the religion of Imam Hussein on anyone. No, the only thing it is doing is saying this is a personality who we respect.
But I will ask the question after you finish, because I want to say something on that as well. Okay, please.
Sure. All we're saying is, look, we respect this personality a great deal. He's an eminent person who we take a great deal from. You don't need to follow his religion. In fact, there's very little mention of religion or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the Hussein website. All it is saying he's a great personality. We're inspired by him. We think if you read about him, read about the stories about water, how Imam Hussein fed not only the opposing army who he knew would kill him and his companions in several days, but also their horses, knowing that his 6-month baby would be killed with a 3-pronged arrow. That didn't stop him. So religion isn't being shoved in anyone's faces. No, actually, far from it. Religion is a source of inspiration. It doesn't stop you from doing goodwill there.
Okay, I'll come back to you with the same question. Feroz, we're talking about Imam Hussein, obviously, alayhi salam, and I want to talk that if someone comes to you and they say that there is a hidden agenda behind that, you want to promote or propagate the message of Imam Hussein and you want to bring him within the folds of Shia Islam, what will be your answer?
The answer would be pretty much that if you believe that that's what we are doing, have a read of what we've provided. So have a read of the website. If over there you think we've mentioned anything about that, you feed it back to us and we'll change it, because that's not the message that we're trying to give the community, right? Because all we want to do is spread compassion and spread his message of humanity.
Okay, your comments. Do you agree? Or
I absolutely agree with what Afro said. There is nothing in our campaign or any agenda that we're pushing that is of that kind. It's simply not the case. Our message is, you know, as the gentleman said, that we're drawing inspiration from the character of Hussein, and that inspiration, we hope to spread it. And through that inspiration, we are doing the work that we're doing to help others. And it's as simple as that.
Okay, Mohammed, is there any hidden agenda behind this campaign?
Absolutely not. Two ways you can look at it. One, you can look at, as both the sisters have mentioned, the content of the website, all the literature. It's who is Hussein, not who is Imam Hussein. You look at all the write-ups describing who Imam Hussein is. Nothing alluding to religion there. But you can talk the talk, but let's look at the walking of the walk. Look at things that Who is Hussein Birmingham have done. Look at what Who is Hussein Sydney have done. Look what Who is Hussein in Africa have done, handing out water bottles, requesting nothing in return, feeding the homeless, propagating the message of Imam Hussein, not actually the message which suggests some kind of religious connotation, but the values that are universal. Compassion's been mentioned many a time, but about humanity, about truthfulness, about not giving up, about standing up to an oppressor. All of these are relevant, are so pertinent in this day and age, above any day and age. Beyond that, it's for each individual to make his judgment call. I know for sure, as do all the sisters, and I think anyone who's read up and interacted with Who is Hussein, that the campaign isn't disingenuous. Rather, it's very frank, it's very upfront, and it's very clear what it's seeking to do.
So have you ever been confronted with these sort of questions in your own personal experience? Have anyone asked you these?
Absolutely. Everyone thinks there's an agenda. Many people feel that in this day and age, any good product has to have a catch. So you get something for nothing, and they say, okay, what do you want me to do? Do you want my contact details? Is there money involved? From my perspective, I think it's a magnificent campaign because it's like that, because it doesn't request anything, because it's completely, there's no reciprocity, as I mentioned earlier. That is the essence of charity, giving good value and asking for nothing in return.
So there's no small print at the bottom somewhere?
There's no, sorry?
There's no small print, no stacks or at the bottom of any website or anything. Okay.
Regarding what?
Regarding any hidden agenda, or you promoting something? Or
there's no hidden agenda at all. Look, there are people who have conspiracy theories that believe that this is some kind of an ultra Shia agenda or some kind of a message is being propagated. It's not at all. This is simply a case of the fans who love Imam Hussein believe that there are many people around the world who do, but it's a shame that his life and his magnificent legacy is contained only within our small bubble, and we need to stop being insular about it. And just as the Jews are proud of Musa and the Christians are proud of Isa as individuals, and as people are proud of Mother Teresa and Mandela and Martin Luther King, people should be proud of Imam Hussein as well.
Okay. Feroz, I want to ask you this, that what do you think, what is the way forward in regarding to Hussein campaign? I mean, what sort of people you will be looking to target if you want to recruit volunteers?
If you want to recruit volunteers, let me tell you what happened at our homeless event. When it came to getting volunteers, obviously we needed a large number, which was about 70. And in the beginning, we were like, will we get 70 volunteers? Because, you know, whenever you work for the mosque communities and mosque charities, it's very hard to get volunteers because it's associated with one sect, you can say, almost, one sect of religion or race or whatever.
And within sects you have different cultures as well.
Different cultures as well. So if you're
a Khoja, you will not be going to the Punjabi mosque, or if you're Punjabi, you will not be going to be volunteering for those. Okay.
Of course. So when it came to this campaign, we obviously started off with our contacts, which were in the Khoja mosque, in the Iraqi mosque. We even went to the Pakistani and Iranian mosques. We advertised over there. And then when the campaign went on Facebook, we gave a shout out for people, anyone, to just come and volunteer if this is something they'd like to do. And by the grace of God, we had Sunnis, we had Shias, we had even a few Hindus, we had Boras, we had I think 1 or 2 non-Muslims as well, like Christians and you know. So it was very open, like people were like, okay, they're feeding the homeless, but they're not just feeding them, they're actually listening to their stories. So I'd like to go and find out why I should not neglect a homeless person on the street, basically.
Okay. Volunteers, you know, when it comes to volunteers, I mean, you're a dentist yourself and you must be having a very busy schedule. So how do you find time for these sort of events and being a volunteer?
It is difficult, especially when you're working full time. But I think just through the help of Allah and the grace of Allah, you find the time. Honestly, you really do. You squeeze in, you know, trying to make contacts and calling this person, that person throughout your day and lunch times and, you know, after work. But it works out. Like we even had this conversation, like, how did we manage to do this? We've got such busy schedules. But you do. You find the time because you want to help and you feel so passionate about this cause that you just make time for it and it just works out, alhamdulillah. Okay,
and Mohammed, your views on that? How do you manage? What is the time management secret behind it?
It's probably easier for others, but genuinely I find in life that when you want to serve and do something in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then He will find a way for you, and you do your best and leave unto God the rest is my mantra. But it's also about being organized, prioritizing, managing well, separating your personal, professional and extracurricular activities from one another, not conflicting in any way. And as I said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will take care of it for you if your intention is noble and clear.
And does it affect your own professional commitments in regards to that someone might come back to you and say that you're affiliated to certain religious group or certain charity, then we will not be coming to you? Or is there any practical cases happens?
Not at all. I find that being involved in work such as community work or youth work or charity work develops you, gives you extra skills. I mean, responsibility isn't usually given on such a large scale to individuals who are 18, 19, 20, up to 25 at work. But when they get involved in humanitarian work, charity work, community work, youth work, you find that a great deal of responsibility, and you might call it burden, I think it's an honor and a pleasure, is placed on your shoulders. And the opportunity to gain that experience, to harness your skills, is incomparable to anything else you might do. So no, I think there's absolute pleasure and no burden to be taken from it.
So that helps you to extend your skill sets. Okay, Muhammad Ali, thank you very much, and Feroz, thank you very much, and Yasmin, thank you very much. We'll be going for a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk more on the charity aspect of this wonderful team of HUSSAIN. Welcome back, viewers. We're joined by Afroz, a merchant, Yasmin Shakarji, and Mohammed Ali Gokul from London. Mohammed, let me come straight to you and tell us more about the international aspect of Who is Hussain campaign.
It's incredible that Who is Hussain, which began around a year ago, really, has gone international to over 24 locations. Prominent locations include Sydney, Chicago, locations in Africa. So really it now has global presence, and Who is Hussain has a global footprint. What that suggests to me is that the concept of Who is Hussain does cross boundaries, and that there are people all over the world who are so proud of Imam Hussain that they want to talk about him and his legacy to the people in their society.
Okay, and you said you're based at Sydney and Chicago. So when you talk about the footprints, what is the volunteer strength in those places?
Sure. So each location has a team who've emailed into the Who is Hussain campaign and said that they'd like to start a Who is Hussain team in their location, in their geography. And the way it works is very simple. They take resources, predominantly the website, but also some of the ideas, some of the best practice that other locations use, and promote the Who is Hussain brand and the story of Imam Hussain in their locations. I'll give you an example. Sydney, quite recently, who are doing a phenomenal job and are going from strength to strength, downloaded the designs that the Who is Hussain websites had on their website for water bottles, which has a quote from Imam Hussain, some details about the campaign itself, stuck it on a number of water bottles, and handed out thousands to commuters on the Sydney trains. And that's something that's been done across the United Kingdom, for example. Over 25,000 water bottles were handed out at universities across the country. So really the message of Who is Hussain is spreading very, very quickly, and by the grace of God is hopefully having some effect.
And how do you generate funds behind it? If someone emails you and said they want to start it in, for example, in Delhi or Bombay, and then what is the transparency level in the transactions, financial transactions?
I won't go into the internal logistics of the campaign. I won't be able to speak to that, but there is a very transparent procedure. There is a very close working relationship between the whole global team and the central headquarters. The policies are very clear. But we find that the Who is Hussain campaign, I feel, finds that people are very much on the same wavelength when it comes to the message of Imam Hussain. And really, I don't believe there's that much work that needs to be done to keep people on that wavelength.
Okay. Afroz, tell us that I want to step back again, and I want to talk more about charity, especially in the Shia school of thought, that I would say that Sunni school of thought is only confined to zakat, and we go a step further and it goes to khums, which is 1/5 of. But why it is so difficult to ask for volunteers? Do you find it difficult and ask people to? Because if you look at the, for example, in Ramadan transmissions across different television networks, there will be people asking for money, and don't you think there's something wrong in the system?
See, asking for money and asking for volunteers is not wrong, because it's the people's right to know where the money is going. I feel it's easier when the people can see good work being done, and when they can see how the money is being used and how it's impacting people's lives, they find it very easy to give the money or find time to come and volunteer. For example, if you ask me to give money towards, let's say, Syria, if you say this money is going to the government's fund and will be transferred to the government, I'd be less likely to give you money, because I think, will the government be corrupt and take it to themselves like they are in India? I can speak for that country because I'm from there myself. But will they take it in their own pockets, or will they actually reach the people? But if you tell me, give me money for Syria, I'll be visiting the place myself, and I'll be buying food to then give food to the people. And you give food to the people, you make a documentary about it, or you just put pictures up on Facebook or the internet or whatever. I'll see, okay, that's where my money has gone, and I'll be more likely to give you more money and say, you know, wherever you need my support, you just come and speak to me.
So it's more depends on your personal bonding and your affiliation to that sort of charity or network.
I think it's more about the level of transparency. If you're transparent with the people you're asking money for, they'd be more likely to give you that money. If you say, oh, I just need money for something that we're planning, we're not sure where it's going or whatnot, they'll be like, you know, why should I give you money? It's, you know, it's their hard-earned money at the end of the day.
I understand, but why, and I want you to, Yasmin, to answer this, that what I really find difficult, that why there's no single pot, or why there's no one single organization everyone can trust, and then money goes to that, and every channel or every mainstream media, they are communicating that message. Why it has to be my community, your community, or, and I find it very interesting that I was talking to one of my accountant friend, and he said to me that if you are not doing anything, open up a charity. So, and you will earn good money. So, do you think there's more transparency needed in these sort of activities?
Yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, I agree with you. I think that there are certain charities where people maybe have heard stuff and then they lose faith or trust in that charity. And with what you said about having one sort of pot, and then from there, that's the means to give to charity, I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't think charities are sort of, yeah, they are intersections in terms of, okay, the Khojas, the Iraqis, but I don't think that it's, you know, it's the Iraqi people just giving to the Iraqi people. I think there's a lot of overlap as well. And I think there's nothing wrong with having loads of different charities. In fact, I think it's a positive thing. I think it's a good thing because there's more of it. If you have one pot or one sort of system, I mean, I couldn't see that really working. I think it'd be better that it's so spread out and there's so many different types of charities. But I do agree with the transparency thing. I think there needs to be more done, because once you trust in a charity and you can see the value of what your money is doing to help people, then that makes people more interested. I mean, with our event, they physically saw that their money was going towards the food, and then we fed the homeless, and what we did. And loads of people jumped on board because they saw how positive their money and their help impacted these people. So I think transparency is a very important thing, definitely.
Okay, Hamid, you tell us about, I mean, obviously we talked about transparency here now, that I obviously I don't want to quote anyone here, but there's a charity I know that the directors were drawing six-figure salary. They were driving four-wheelers and jeeps all across wherever the disasters were happening. So where is this administrative cost comes in? That how can you put a hold on that? Is there any procedure in place in HUSSAIN campaign for the directors or anyone who's drawing salaries from this campaign?
Well, there's several points to make here. I mean, first of all the individuals involved with HUSSAIN around the globe are volunteers, and none of them are making any profit or drawing any salary from it. Secondly, I don't know the details of this charity that you're speaking of, but it's important not to allow one rotten apple to spoil the entire cart. I say that because there are a number of...
But it's more about the trust. I mean, that's what my point is. That I'll make sure that I will not recommend that charity to anyone after that. So this is more about the trust level, don't you think?
Well, sure. I mean, that's your personal prerogative. The charity law in the UK demands that charities are very transparent. With the Charities Commission, accounts have to be published on an annual basis. The trustees can be personally liable for any impropriety, any drawings that they shouldn't have made. But also, it's very important, as I said, that we don't allow one rotten apple to spoil the entire cart, because there are a number of charities across the country, forget across the country, around the world, who are doing fantastic work, don't often get the credit they deserve, and these are people who could be earning a great deal more elsewhere because they're very competent, but do it because they want to help others who need their help, because they feel that other organizations, be they government or other institutions, aren't doing enough, and so take it on themselves. And I think for those people who represent 99.9% of charities out there, it's important not to allow that 0.1% to drag them down. HUSSAIN is very, very transparent. If you speak to any of the individuals, the founders, or any of the campaign team members involved with it, they'll be very clear with you. In fact, I'm very aware that the transparency at HUSSAIN is exceptional, and they are taking even greater steps to be as transparent as possible. If we're talking about transparency as a means of efficient fundraising, that's one thing that's important. But also, I find that many of the charities within our community are backwards. So myself, I've been quite involved at Stanmore Jeffries on the charity side of things. the methods used in our communities are often outdated. It's not just enough anymore to walk around with a bucket and say, please give. You have to do even more to get someone to take money out, because people are being asked left, right and centre to give. You have to explain to them where the money is going, what good it will do, how it improve people, not just in the short term, but their medium and long term prospects. For example, if you're a charity that doesn't have a Just Giving account set up, then you might as well be dormant, because you're not going to get very far. So yes, transparency is important, but it comes with an array of other things as well.
Okay, you mentioned this old, I would say, the conventional thinking that leaving the buckets on the doorsteps of the mosque and people will just dropping the coins. I mean, have you ever challenged this thinking across, be it Stanmore Jaffrey's or in your own community work? Have you ever challenged and talked to people? What sort of response you get from the older generation?
Sure. I mean, by the grace of God, we have a very strong fundraising team. This Ramadan, we raised about £25,000, alhamdulillah, for Ramadan relief to feed poor people in distressed areas. We also raised £15,000 for Syria. I'll give you an example. I'll take an example from what we did for Syria, because I think it's a good example about what you can do when you're innovative. About a dozen of us came together and decided that something was needed to be done for Syria. 100,000 people in Syria have been killed, about 2 million have been displaced. So we felt that in honor of, or to recognize what a Syrian refugee, for example, is going through, that we, the dozen of us, would live off just a few pounds for 5 days, £1 a day for 5 days, and raise money and ask people to sponsor us for it. And between the dozen of us, we raised about £15,000 because it was interesting, it was innovative, it was creative, and because it made people sit up and think, wow, that's different. And personally, having done it myself, I'll tell you, it was quite a challenge. It really made you think about where it is you get your food from, and it's changed many of our psyches, the way we think about food, and what it is to be a Syrian refugee. Where are they going to get their next meal from? So you have to be innovative. You have to constantly push the envelope. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in the past, and you won't be very effective.
Okay, let me ask the same question, Feroz. Have you ever been challenged by the older generation that why are you doing this, and we are happy with that sort of bucket leaving at the doorstep?
No, actually, I feel as the Birmingham community, they're quite appreciative of us coming up with new ideas and new ways to raise funds, because you even have to think from their perspective. They've seen this all these years that they've grown up. They want to see what more can the new generation bring, because at the end of the day, they've helped you grow.
Yeah.
So they want to see how they've impacted your lives and what more you can change in the community and what ways you can bring that change. So they're very appreciative.
But there's always a resistance to change, isn't that true? Yes.
I mean, yeah, to an extent. There may be a few people that might find change difficult to see, but I think the majority of the community welcome change, and they welcome new ideas and new ways of approaching things. I mean, particularly with the mosque that I go to, the Iraqi mosque in Birmingham, they have welcomed this HUSSAIN campaign, the ideas that the things that we've done with regards to the homeless, other ways of fundraising like running the half marathon, things that they may not have done maybe in their time.
But they have done their best, obviously, building
these mosques. They have done their best, absolutely, yeah. I mean, the bucket idea is still a great idea. Let's not knock it. I mean, at the end of the day, it still happens. It's still a great way of generating funds.
Okay. Community development. I mean, how someone can join when they join any volunteering services or these sort of charity? Do you think it's helping there, as Mohammed earlier mentioned as well, that it harnesses their skills, and it's important for the younger generation to come and do this volunteer work? And do you find it easier to go and project this product to those young kids?
Of course. As part of the Abbasi committee in Birmingham, we have a lot of responsibility to deliver things to the youth that they're looking for. So often we have to, obviously, as a committee, go through to the executive committee, present our ideas. Sometimes we get resistance from them, but at the end of the day, you have to see that they're looking out for us. They're obviously trying to show us that, you have these ideas, but slow down a bit, because it might be a bit dangerous at this point, but maybe you can try it at a later date.
Okay, because they can foresee as well.
Because they can foresee, because they've got more experience, and that's where you have to learn from, I guess.
Okay, Yasmin, what is the reaction you get from the young teenagers? I mean, do you think they are on the right track when it comes to charity or volunteer?
Absolutely, yeah. I think when we presented these ideas to the youth, they have such a thirst to help and just be involved in things like this and campaigns and ideas like this, that they almost don't have the means or the platforms, but when you give them opportunities like this, they'll grab it with both hands, and they're so excited to be involved. You know, so many of the youth within our own communities are just like, okay, so when can we come? When is it going to be? Are you going to do any more homeless food drives? What are the next events? They're so keen and they're so eager.
So it is basically channelizing the energy they have.
Yeah, they have so much energy to help in the right ways, precisely.
Okay, does it happen in, obviously I assume in London as well, Mohammed?
I mean, look, one thing that has to be said is that the job market isn't great. To be frank, there's increasing competition for the top jobs. But one thing that employers are looking for increasingly is extracurricular involvement. Philanthropy, volunteerism, charity work is seen as such a huge bonus. In fact, I would say it's almost obligatory for anyone who's trying to get a competitive job to do a certain amount of charity work, because it shows that you're a multifaceted individual. And so you'll find, not just for that reason, but also because the youth are generous in their time, and also, unlike maybe their parents, youth have time to give. They may not have the vast sums that their parents do, but they have time, right? They have the weekends free also, and their evenings free. So they are willing to get involved. And in fact, the biggest challenge for organizations out there is to convince young people who have energy and who are very capable that their charity is the right one, or their community organization or their institution is the right one to help out with. And I know that the HUSSAIN campaign has been greatly supported by the elders in financial terms. I mean, HUSSAIN doesn't ask any money from any of the individuals who go on the website, for example, because there's been such great community support from the elders. And on the grassroots level from the youth, it's the youth who drive it at ABSOCs across the country. 25,000 water bottles were handed out by ABSOC volunteers at universities from right down south in England to up north in Scotland, only because there are youth who want to get involved and want to give their time for a greater good.
But don't you think it's extra burden for them? Obviously, I understand that because of the job market, as well as it has to be, it will definitely look good on your CV that you have done some volunteer work. But having this community development, so many different umbrella organizations that, for example, Afroz is working for Abbasi Youth as well, and then you're part of HUSSAIN campaign as well. So don't you think it's extra burden you have to?
No, I don't think it's burden. I think I actually feel very honored that I can give my time into all these things, because what else would I be doing at home if I wasn't part of the Abbasi Youth Committee, if I wasn't working full time, if I wasn't part of HUSSAIN? I'd be watching TV. But instead I can channel my energy towards doing the administrative work that needs to be done for these events, right? So it's all about using your time and using your skills in the right places, instead of getting diverted and using it
and basically wasting it, I would say.
Yes.
Okay, Yasmin, I mean, what I've seen in the past, that many volunteers, they run away from these organizations because of some sort of red tape, bureaucracy, or politics. So have you ever seen that sort of thing so far in HUSSAIN?
Not at all. I mean, in terms of people getting upset within the campaign?
Yes.
No, I think we work so well as a team. Like, honestly, within the main sort of core committee, we just sort of bounce off each other. There's no sort of politics or arguments or anything that happens with it. We just literally have a drive to deliver the message, get the event, get everything that we want out, and the messages of HUSSAIN out, and that drive and that is what inspires us. We don't have time for the rest of it, we really don't.
Mohammed, she is suggesting a very utopian sort of organization. Is that true? There's no politics or no bureaucracy involved?
Yeah, in my experience, politics is often the result of ego, people pushing self-interest. You'll find it's very interesting that the founders of HUSSAIN took a very conscious decision to remain anonymous, because it's not about self-promotion. It's not about their names being in the headlights. Rather, it's about Imam Hussein's name and no one else's name. So HUSSAIN, you call it utopian. I actually think it's refreshing that a campaign is genuinely seeking to just impart good and receive nothing in return, be it fame, reputation, money, whatever else it may be. And I find that increasingly the case with many of our organisations. I see, just in the work I do at Stanmore Jamaat, some absolutely mind-blowing, wonderful, exceptional things being done by people who don't wish to have any recognition whatsoever. Look, we're commemorating the wafat of Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam. Here's a man who gave his life to serving others, and now 1300 years later we still reap the rewards of what he did for not just his local community but for the global community at large. And that is the kind of personality we should all look to for inspiration, for guidance, for Hidayat, and we should try and emulate in all our activities. And I'm pleased to say that I think HUSSAIN is doing its very best to do just that.
Okay, the next question I want to ask Afroz here. You know, I mean, is there any collaboration strategies with HUSSAIN? That are you working in partnership with something, or is it just a?
No, see, that's the uniqueness of the campaign, that it's just the campaign. It's not this organization with it and that organization with it, or, you know, it's just one pure message that needs to go out to the global community at large, and that's the message that we hope that we're delivering to the global.
So if we talk about the cultural diversity within this campaign, that what sort of cultural backgrounds do you welcome, or is there any
restrictions?
Yes, restrictions,
No,
which are never on the paper, but they are always. I mean, we all know that.
Let me tell you, our volunteer base is, like I told you, made of Hindus. There's Boras, there's Iraqis, there's Iranians, there's Khojas, and there's Pakistanis. So as far as I can see, there is no restriction. We even welcome young people, we welcome all people. At our recent event, we had people at the age of 55, 60 who came to the event. We couldn't have people younger than 18, unfortunately, because obviously it was quite risky. But they also got involved at a different level. They wrote letters for the homeless people that we gave the homeless people. So everyone's involved, whether it be age or religion or cultural diversity. It's everyone.
Okay. Do you think, Yasmin, you've been welcomed when you were joining the organization?
Absolutely. I mean, I only had to suggest, oh, could I be involved in the organization? And they just grabbed me with both hands and sort of said, yes, they welcomed me so much. And I think because I genuinely had a passion for what the campaign was about, and I think they saw the passion, I'm hoping, and instantly we just worked so well as a team, and you know, the creative side of things, it just flowed so well, and I was absolutely welcomed by the entire team. Okay.
Mohammed, tell us that do you find it difficult when you go and ask people for obviously financial help, and if there is any restrictions, or is there any, you know, I mean, how do you work in the financial transactions? I want to highlight that now.
I can't divulge any information on that. What I will say though is that while HUSSAIN hasn't formally endorsed any organization, I know that HUSSAIN has received unanimous support from the community institutions that are around it, who've given time, advice, and yes, money to support the HUSSAIN campaign in ways that are so brilliant as to defy belief in itself. That the support that people have for this pure product of Imam Hussein's legacy is undeniable. I mean, just want to touch on something Afroz said, and that you asked her about as to whether there are any boundaries as to who can get involved. If you go onto YouTube and type in HUSSAIN and look at the videos on there, you'll find videos from people from all walks of life talking about how Imam Hussein inspires them. You'll find a Caucasian publisher, you'll find an academic professor, they're not Muslims. You find people who have never heard about Imam Hussein, who don't know anything, zilch about Islam, talking about him, old, young, white, black, whatever it may be. So HUSSAIN is universal both in its outlook, and the support it's received from institutions and individuals alike has been quite overwhelming.
Okay, last question to all of you. I mean, what is the message for the youth?
A general message for the youth? I would say is to use your energies, divert your energies for a better good in the world, because at the end of your journey, it's not about what you've got as an individual, it's about what you've given to the world that's going to stay and last forever. We perish.
And then deeds
remain.
Okay, your thoughts?
I think with regards to the youth is, just don't waste your time. You know, we live in a society in the West where everything around us is pushing us towards a certain way, and campaigns shape you and it will bring that humility in you.
Okay. Mohammed, your last thoughts on what's your message to youth?
In fact, anyone can make a difference, just as Imam Hussain and his 72 followers made an indelible impression on not just their time, but 1400 years later, we still see how they've affected the world. Anyone can make a difference if they channel their energy, and they can overthrow tyrants. You can free you can free people from oppression. You can relieve poverty. You can give to charity. You can give water to the thirsty. You can make a difference. And Hussain is about belief. Those are the two things that Hussain stands for.
And I think, yes, everyone should listen to that. Master, thank you very much, Afroz, for joining us. Thank you, Yasmin, and thank you, Mohammed, for your time. Viewers, we have had a wonderful conversation with Hussain, Who is Hussain campaign, and these wonderful people have, as Mohammed mentioned, self-reflection is very important for our youth, and it is about time that our youth starts pondering and try to reflect that which is going to be left. It should be, our inspiration should be the legacy of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. He passed away, but the legacy still lives on. With this prayers, as always, gam humko na de siwaye gam shabbir ka gam baant raha hai to idhar de. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.